Hey, how's it going there, everybody? It's Taylor here, aka Mr. Enthusiasm, and what I'm going to be talking about in this video today is resistances in Diablo 2. So just a quick overview. I'm going to be going over breaking immunes, minus enemy resistance, percent skill damage increase, and how maximum resistances work, as well as how absorb works. So without further ado, let's get into the video. On Diablo 2, there's 4 skills that can break immunities, and those skills are Conviction, which is a pally skill that reduces fire, cold, and lightning resistance, but it doesn't reduce poison resist, and it can lower a monster's resistance by a maximum of 150%. And then also there's Lower Resist, which is a Necromancer Curse that reduces fire, cold, lightning, and poison resistance, and that'll reduce it up to a maximum of 70% for each of those elements that I mentioned. So for physical immunes, there's Amplify Damage, which is also a Necromancer Curse that reduces physical resistance. And that'll reduce a monster's resistance by 100% there, so that's good for the physical immunes. And Decryptify, which is also a Necromancer Curse that reduces physical resistance, and that'll lower a monster's physical resistance by 50%. When it comes to physical immunes and lightning immunes, those are going to be the easiest to break. You can break every physical immune in hell with amplified damage, and for lightning, you can break every lightning immune with just Conviction Aura, except for a couple monsters. But when it comes to fire and cold immunes and poison immunes, those are going to be the hardest to break, because they're going to just have higher resistances as you know, the monsters just have higher resistances. So you know, even with lower resistance, the Necromancer Curse and Conviction Aura, you're still not going to break some of the fire and cold immunes. So that's why you see a lot of people using lightning sorceresses and hammered-ins to magic find, because there's very few magic immunes in the game, as well as, you know, lightning sources are able to break basically every immune monster that's immune to lightning with just a Conviction Aura with their Infinity on their mercenary. Unique monsters can spawn with immunities, as well as modifiers that will give them an increase on resistance. So there's a bunch of different modifiers, and I'll list those on the screen so you can see them all. But for example, if a unique monster spawns with the Stone Skin modifier, which you can see right underneath their name and their health, that will increase their physical resistance 50%, and then if they get fire enchanted, that'll increase their fire resistance 75%. So they can get that, as well as, you know, immunities for different, you know, elemental damage or physical damage. For these skills that lower resistances and break immunities, you can get them on various items, so you could have them potentially on, you know, any class. So for Conviction, you can get that skill on a rune word called Infinity, and it won't be easy to get, or it won't be cheap, but if you keep playing, you'll eventually get the rune word. You'll be able to make it or trade for it. But you know, usually you equip that on mercenary, and it'll break immunities if you have your mercenary alive with you. But for lower resist, you can get that there on a wand if you buy a wand with lower resist charges. So you know, it comes in the form of charges, which you can buy a wand with lower resist charges in Nightmare Act 2, and you know, there's some different items with amplify damage, and also Decryptify. The Reaper's Toll will have a 33% chance to cast Decryptify, so it's good if you do a lot of physical damage with your character. For the increase to percent skill damage, how that works is pretty straightforward. For example, the Rainbow Facet Jewel, if we look at the mod here, 5% to fire skill damage. So if you have a sorceress that does 100 pure fire damage and you add this to it, it'll then do 105 damage, so it's pretty straightforward. So for the minus enemy resistance mod, so again, looking at the Facet, and we're gonna look at these two attributes separately and just break them down so we can understand them. So for the rainbow Facet, minus 5% to enemy fire resistance. We'll go over an example. So just for an example, if you had a sorceress that did 1000 pure fire damage versus a monster with 50% fire res, your sorceress would do 500 fire damage. And then if you had 1000 fire damage versus 45% fire res, with your minus 5% enemy fire resistance attribute, if you had something that added minus 5% fire res, your sorceress would do 550 there to the monster. And then for an example with the percent to fire skill damage, if you had 5% to fire skill damage or cold damage or whatever damage, so we'll just say fire, for the example, you would go from 1000 to 1050 fire damage versus 50% fire res on a monster. That would be 525 damage that your character would do. So I'm hoping my example was okay and I explained it okay for you guys. I just wanted to give that example just in case anybody needed that. But that brings me to the next topic of maximum resistances. So usually your character is going to be capped at 75% resistances, but there are some items that will add to your maximum resistance, and you need an item that has an attribute that says it'll add specifically to maximum resistance. So for example, T-Gods, it says 10% to maximum lightning resistance. So you need an item like that to get above 75 on your character. Increasing your maximum resistances can really increase your survivability versus whatever you have maximum resistances for. And I'm going to throw a chart up on the screen that shows how much survivable damage you go from when you go from 75% resistances to 95% resistances. So you can see if you do 25% damage against somebody with 75 res, if you attack somebody with 95% maximum resistances, you're only going to do 5% damage. So you can see how effective maximum resistances can be. And if you combine that with absorb gear, certain damage can be completely neutralized and even negated in some cases. To get absorb on your character, you need an item that has a percent absorb attribute on it. So for example, Ravenfrost has Ravenfrost the unique ring has 20% cold absorb, and we're going to look at an example with Ravenfrost that I found on DiabloFandom.com. And so the example is if a player with a Ravenfrost and 75% cold resistance takes a 400 damage cold attack, the 75% resistances that player has brings that cold attack down to 100 damage, right? So then with the cold absorb, you take 20% off of that figure, which leaves it at 80 HP, and then 20 of that 80 will be converted to healing because of the absorb, which would leave the ultimate damage being 60 damage from that 400 damage cold attack or cold spell. So I'll leave a link in the description there where I found that example. So there it is, guys. That's my video on enemy resistances and monster resistances. So I'm hoping this helps somebody out there. And if you ended up learning anything, or you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe for more Diablo 2 content. But that's the end of the video, guys. So I'll see you on the next one.